slammed a White House memo suggesting furloughed federal workers may not get back pay during the shutdown.
You've got these people who, if they're members of the credit union, may be borrowing money to pay their bills.
He called it a bad strategy and a fake crisis, while President Trump says pay decisions will vary by worker. The National Guard may be deployed in Memphis, Tennessee on Friday. Police Chief Saralyn C.J. Davis, the first female and Black female chief of the Memphis Police Department, says troops won't patrol neighborhoods, but will support violent crime enforcement through federal partnerships. And former Congresswoman Carolyn Cheeks Kilpatrick, the mother of former Detroit Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick, has died at age 80. She was the first Black woman on the House Appropriations Committee and served Detroit in Congress from 1997 to 2011. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
A few bucks this season? Then head over to your local Big O Tires for their Save a Buck sales event. You'll save up to $250 on select sets of tires with paid installation through October 19th. The Save a Buck sales event, now at your local Big O Tires.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers are back in town tonight for Game 3 of their playoff series with the Philadelphia Phillies. The Dodgers have a 2-0 lead in the best-of-5. They can eliminate the Phillies with a win. The Dodgers are 4-0 in the postseason. First pitch tonight at 6 p.m. Colorado football coach Deion Sanders had minor surgery Tuesday to help relieve pain and possible blood clots in his left foot. Deion complained of pain in his foot and left leg during Saturday's game at Texas Christian. It's uncertain if the 58-year-old coach will be at practice today. Colorado is at home Saturday against Iowa State. Deion's son Shedeur has been elevated to the number 2 quarterback spot on the Cleveland Browns roster. Rookie Dylan Gabriel is the Browns starter after 18-year veteran Joe Flacco was traded Tuesday to Cincinnati. The Browns are at Pittsburgh on Sunday. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hello, KBLA delegation. Tavis Smiley here. On Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech becomes the epicenter of ideas that matter. The Left Coast Forum is bringing together voices that challenge, inspire, and illuminate with keynote presentations from people like noted economist Richard Wolff, the man who breaks down capitalism in ways that make sense to working folk like you and me, and Dr. Cornel West will be there, the brilliant philosopher and activist who never stops fighting for justice and speaking truth to power and to the powerless for that matter. So this isn't just another conference. This is where ideas get tested, where the conversations that shape our future begin. Multiple plenary sessions, dynamic speakers, real talk about the issues that impact our communities, and then some good food and a live band. Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech, Left Coast Forum. The event is free and open to the public, but you must register at our KBLA1580.com website, where you can also peep the plenary topics. The future belongs to those who show up and engage. So don't just think about change, be part of the conversation that creates it. The Left Coast Forum is brought to you by the LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress, Community Coalition, Partnership for Growth LA, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, LA Care Health Plan, United Teachers Los Angeles, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and more. Space is limited, so if I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. Your voice matters, your presence matters. We'll see you there.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. It is the 84th birthday of the Reverend Jesse Jackson, my father, and a man who I am particularly proud of. His legacy of service, his life's work is so extraordinary. We really can't get it all in an hour, and so I've asked some friends to stop by. Our regular host, Atiba. Atiba is a former deputy executive director of the National Black Caucus of State Legislators. He's a strategic alliance consultant and president of Party Politics US. He's worked as a TV political contributor for BNC News, The Heat, In the Know with Mo, The Leslie Marshall Show, iHeartRadio, Government Exec, Gov Exec, 96.3 WHUR, and One America News Network. He most recently was a guest host on Rising American Daily News, an opinion web series produced in Washington, D.C. by the political newspaper The Hill. Atiba, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Hey, Jesse, it's good to be with you.
Hey, let me also take this opportunity to say that after we come forward, Reverend Al Sharpton will be our guest. He's an American civil rights activist, Baptist minister, television and radio host, known for founding the National Action Network and leading protests for justice and equality. Born in Brooklyn, New York in 1954, this man really needs no introduction, in my opinion. I don't know anyone, I share it with people from one end of the country to the other, anyone who has studied the methodology of Jesse Jackson more diligently than Reverend Dr. Al Sharpton. Dr. Sharpton is going to join us for about 10 minutes in the next segment. Atiba, welcome forward to the show.
Thanks, Jesse.
Atiba, some of your thoughts on the life and the contribution of Reverend Jesse Jackson.
Yeah, first thing I want to say is happy 84th birthday to Reverend Jackson. And, you know, there's so many things, you know, you asked me before we came on, you know, to what some of my thoughts would be. And, you know, one of them is really honestly 1984. You know, up until 1984, the first person that I saw of color that I recognized as president was Anwar Sadat, Egypt. And I remember him being at the Camp David Accords and just how moved I was. And unfortunately, he was assassinated. But thinking about 1984 and just how Reverend Jackson's running for president changed the conversation, because I think up until then, I feel like we didn't think that it was possible for an African American to be on that stage and to do as well as he did. And then he came back in 1988. But the picture that I still also remember is also 2008, as President-elect Barack Obama took the stage and watching your father emotional. And I think that, you know, the emotion had to be a number of things, just all the things that he had done going back to the 60s, working with Dr. King, telling us often to keep hope alive. And it wasn't just about telling us to keep hope alive. He was bringing hope, and he was showing us what it meant, not just to hope, but to act and to do. And so, you know, I don't know what was going through his mind. I know I've seen interviews of him talking about that, but I imagine that he had to be thinking about the journey, the struggle, and then the successes and the victory that of that night, but also of your role within that campaign and how all those pieces, what have you, came together. So, you know, again, wishing Reverend Jackson a happy birthday, and hopefully get a chance to also talk about some other opportunities in terms of interactions that I've been able to have with him over the years.
I'm looking forward to that. You know, when I think about my father, I try to look at him not only subjectively as a son, and I think all children have the right to subjectively look at their children, or look at their parents. I try to look at my father as objectively as possible. I think the objectivity, the admiration, observing his work, and where I could, contributing to his work, and where I can, duplicating his work, while at the same time trying to carve out a comfortable niche for myself, has always been a particular struggle for me personally. When I looked up to my father, when I was growing up, I mean, this was the most extraordinary figure, ability to traverse the entire world, have conversations with leaders, come back to push every Saturday and fight the power in the city of Chicago and throughout our country. He was just and is a beacon of enormous strength. And we often talk about, you know, we need multiple leaders in multiple places. But when I see my father and I think about him, you know, it was important to have on occasion a single voice, some single clarity. And Dad would often say, you know, I am not stopping anyone from being a leader. People can be a leader if they want, but the fact that I'm engaged every single day and that I take leadership seriously and that I engage it every single day. Some people who they see leadership as a part-time job and not a full-time job in the Black community, they would really not understand my father in his heyday, because my father took leading African Americans very, very seriously. He also, Atiba, believed that he had to raise money from one location to the next in order to maintain his voice. He would pass the hat. And I can see now, the freedom associated with that. A non-corporate sponsored leader, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, 84 years old today. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest in this hour is Atiba. When we come forward in just a few moments, Reverend Al Sharpton is going to be our special guest who's going to offer some insights into the leadership of Reverend Jesse Jackson and how he, as one of his disciples, continues that significant work. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward, joining me on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show will be Reverend Al Sharpton.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hello, KBLA delegation. Tavis Smiley here. On Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech becomes the epicenter of ideas that matter. The Left Coast Forum is bringing together voices that challenge, inspire, and illuminate with keynote presentations from people like noted economist Richard Wolff, the man who breaks down capitalism in ways that make sense to working folk like you and me, and Dr. Cornel West will be there, the brilliant philosopher and activist who never stops fighting for justice and speaking truth to power and to the powerless for that matter. So this isn't just another conference. This is where ideas get tested, where the conversations that shape our future begin. Multiple plenary sessions, dynamic speakers, real talk about the issues that impact our communities, and then some good food and a live band. Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech, Left Coast Forum. The event is free and open to the public, but you must register at our KBLA1580.com website, where you can also peep the plenary topics. The future belongs to those who show up and engage. So don't just think about change, be part of the conversation that creates it. The Left Coast Forum is brought to you by the LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress, Community Coalition, Partnership for Growth LA, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, LA Care Health Plan, United Teachers Los Angeles, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and more. Space is limited, so if I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. Your voice matters, your presence matters. We'll see you there.
$5,000. That's the average amount of money people in the U.S. are now spending on gas in a year. $5,000. That's crazy. If you drive, you have to download Upside, the free app that gives you cash back every time you get gas. That's right. You can earn real cash back with Upside just by buying the gas you're already buying. You can literally start earning cash back today.
I use Upside every time I fill up, and I've already made around $200-$300.
You're putting gas in your car anyway. Why not get real cash back? If you like free money, download Upside.
I'm saving the cash I earn from using Upside to help pay for a vacation later this year.
Download the free Upside app now to earn cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code MAJOR25 to get an extra 25 cents per gallon on your first tank. You can cash out anytime right to your bank, PayPal, or a gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code MAJOR25 for a 25 cents per gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code MAJOR25 for a 25 cents per gallon bonus.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest for the next few minutes really does not need an introduction. He is none other than Reverend Dr. Al Sharpton. Dr. Sharpton, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, Jesse Jackson Jr., and I'm honored to be on. Just this morning, I called and had them put the phone to Reverend Jackson's ear to wish him a happy birthday. 84 years old. We thank God for him, and we thank God for what he's done for all of us.
And happy birthday to you, Reverend Sharpton, on the 3rd of October. Happy birthday seems to be both in your futures, and I'm so grateful that you're joining us. Dr. Sharpton, I don't know anyone, and I say it from coast to coast, who has studied the methodology, the philosophy, the thinking of Reverend Jesse Jackson, who has earned the title of disciple, but not only that, quite frankly, successor to the work of my father, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, quite like you. Reverend Sharpton, talk about your inspiration of how Reverend Jackson inspired you and why it's important to keep his work and his work through you moving forward.
Well, I think I met Reverend Jackson when I was 12 years old. My mother was a devout member of the Church of God in Christ. She was afraid because I kept watching a lot of activism and things on the news. She brought me to Reverend William Jones and Bishop Washington. They introduced me to Reverend Jackson, and I became the youth director of the New York chapter when I was 12. The year Dr. King was killed, I became the youth director in 68. So for 59 years, I've been under the tutelage of your father. And like most mentors, mentees, we always agree on tactics, but we never separated. And I tried to continue in my way what he did in Dr. King's way in terms of he did Operation Breadbasket, then push around economic empowerment, and then political. I started Saturday morning meetings. We now 34th year of every Saturday morning on the broadcast. I started dealing with economic rights. I did the presidential campaign. But I think Reverend Jackson is like Dr. King, big enough that he has several people that carry different streams that he opened the door for. You in the legislative area. People didn't think you could win for Congress when you ran, and you ran against people and won. That was Jesse Jackson's lane. He had opened up in the political lane. And there are those that are saying you may run again. I'm one encouraging you to run again. I'm not going to put you on the spot to make a decision, but it would be good to announce on your father's birthday.
I announced this morning, Reverend Al. So
on Jesse Jackson. Thank God, and I'm glad to hear that. But I think, again, that when we see even those that were not in the Jackson house in terms of the political and social house, there wouldn't have been a Barack Obama in the White House if Jesse Jackson had not changed the rules of how primaries are to be counted, primary results. The rules change is why Hillary Clinton didn't win the nomination in 2008. There are people in the corporate world that are there because he opened those doors. So I think it falls on us to uphold those that held us up. If you go through the Bible, everybody of note in the Bible, Jesse, always refers to where they are in terms of lineage. David talks about in the name of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He didn't try to act like it was started with him. When we meet Jesus in the first chapter of Matthew, he is first chapter. They bring him back to his lineage of David and back to Moses. So I'm proud to be part of the lineage, movement lineage, ministerial lineage of Jesse Jackson, and one of his disciples, along with Jesse Jackson Jr. and Reverend James Meeks. A lot of folk been followers, but he only had a few disciples because that's a hard task.
Reverend Sharpton, I have about 2 minutes, knowing that your time is limited. I just wanted to ask you this. These might be the most perilous times that we've experienced as a people in the nation's history. We are in time, but we're in time over time to deal with these issues. And I don't know anyone who's dealing with them more and more consistently than you. And that also is in Reverend Jackson's tradition. Reverend Sharpton, very quickly, for the next 2 minutes, if you got, where do we go from here?
I think we've got to build a resistance movement across all lines. We see Donald Trump, he's just more caustic and more unpolished than Ronald Reagan was when Jesse Jackson ran in 84 and 88, building a Rainbow Coalition and a resistance movement that led to Bill Clinton becoming president in 1992. I think we got to build a movement. We've got to register and vote. We've got to put people like you back in Congress. Coretta Scott King used to say that the movement and civil rights is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And they passed the baton to keep it going. Many of us were looking for a sprint. Barack Obama won, and Kamala became vice president. We thought it was over. It was only one part of the race. We've got to grab our baton in our time and keep the race going. And that's what Trump is a result of the things that preceded him. We must be a result of the resistance movements that preceded us.
Reverend Sharpton, thank you for your leadership.
Thank you. And thank you for announcing. I'm going to talk about it on my show now.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much for the extraordinary job that you're doing in the legacy of the Reverend Jesse Jackson. Let me bring Atiba forward. Reverend Al Sharpton just spoke with us about the legacy of Reverend Jackson. You had some additional stories that you wanted to share. Atiba, I think your mic might be muted.
Thank you, Jesse. As the Deputy Executive Director of the National Black Caucus of State Legislators, it's amazing just all the incredible leaders that I got a chance to interact with. And your father was one of them. And, I can recall sitting the first time I got a chance to sit next to him at a National Policy Alliance meeting. And, first off, I didn't realize your dad was so tall. And I was like, whoa, okay. Yeah, he's a big man. And but a big man who also was doing big things. And the things that come to me was remembering as a child and him always saying, keep hope alive. And when I met with Congressman John Lewis the first time, he wrote in my book, keep your eyes on the prize. And, these things that our leaders were telling us are for this moment. Jesse, you announcing that you're running for Congress is for this moment, because we get an opportunity to stand on the shoulders of giants. So I talk about your father's height, but, for me as a guy who's 5'9", 5'10", just to look up, it's not just that, it's that these men and women have done so much to make a way for us, and we have lessons, and we are built for this moment. And the questions that we now need to do or are already answered, we just have to look back. And we just have to look back and really study, what did they do? What did your father do? How did your father get onto the national stage? How did Reverend Sharpton come onto the national stage? And it wasn't, I know that there were times when people said, oh, well, he's still in the limelight or what have you. The limelight is big. It's up for people to step forward and not look for the limelight, because the real work happens behind the camera. It happens when the cameras are off. And I think that that's, one of the things that I think about when sitting with your father, listening to people in the room like Dorothy Height speak, and then watching your father quietly listening to what was happening, and then summing up things and making things in a way that inspired people to go out and to do the work.
Atiba, when you mentioned Dorothy Height and you mentioned John Lewis, and you think about the contemporaries that are in the space of Reverend Jesse Jackson, who turned 84 years old today. I wonder if in our space, in our time, if we look at ourselves as the kinds of contemporaries that come together for this hour, like Reverend Sharpton said, to build a resistance movement, to develop relationships. We had a guest on the show yesterday, Dr. Ron Daniels, who talked about the 1972 convention in Gary, Indiana. And Gina, our producer, who's from Gary, loves to go through the convention. And when she plays the video, which you can find on YouTube, you see Willie Brown there. You see Coleman Young there. You see Mahalia, Aretha Franklin there. You see Jesse Jackson there. You see Richard Gordon Hatcher there. You see mayors and Congressman John Conyers there. And these are all young people who are serious about, at that moment, a political party, a Black political thrust that had relationships that would survive literally for decades.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, am I missing the meeting? Am I missing something? We're all on the radio and have podcasts.
I'm laughing because right now I'm writing this piece about messaging, and it's forcing me to recall different events of my own past. And I keep thinking about just the people that I've come in touch with, Jesse, over the years, and having a mentor like Calvin Smyrie, former state rep in Georgia.
Great guy.
Yeah. And, remembering being on the floor at the DNC in 2004, and here comes walking up is Barack Obama and Michelle. This is, 2 nights before he gave the big speech. And then here comes your dad. And he comes right up to Calvin. Hey, Calvin. And I
remember Representative Calvin Smyre in 1984 and 88 on the floor of the Democratic Convention. And he was actually very involved and engaged in the Jesse Jackson campaigns. And that's what I'm saying. These relationships meet at a certain time in a certain place, and they develop a cohesion that really becomes a kind of leadership class for every generation. Am I missing the meeting, or have I not been invited?
No, I think we also live in a time when there's a lot of I. All these things are forcing us to come back to we.
Yeah.
And there is this desire to say something and all of a sudden go viral.
Yeah.
But Keep Hope Alive didn't go viral on the internet. It went viral because we kept hearing it.
Yeah.
And the messages and the people that we were talking about, they were getting together. And that's why I said that these things were happening behind the scenes. They weren't happening in the cameras. And when they came out, they did speak in a united voice. They because they were saying that they had the same message. They just may have said it in their own way. So no, I don't think we're missing the meeting, Jesse. I think it's time to call the meeting.
I like that. I think about something that Jesse Jackson clearly must have recognized when he kind of coined the phrase "keep hope alive." He had to recognize that hope was needed, that despair was abound, that depression was abound, that the people were down, they were dispirited, and the only thing, the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen, was this idea that there was a longing for freedom, a longing for liberty, a longing for emancipation. This idea of keeping hope eternal comes from a leadership that first recognizes that the people are in some kind of state of suffering. They're feeling some kind of way. Do you see a Keep Hope Alive kind of leadership on the horizon? I'm really proud of the work Reverend Sharpton's doing.
Yeah, I think Reverend Sharpton, I think that there are pockets, and I think that there's a lot of things that are going on, but I think that we've got to get back to recognizing who we are in this conversation. I think we've honestly beat a dead horse when we keep talking about the things that we already know are at the cusp of the issues, whether or not it's racism or sexism, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's really taking the front row and recognizing that this is our moment. This is what we've been built for. This is our time to talk about America's issues, whether or not it has to do with from the president to a government shutdown to what's going on in the states, et cetera, that we are being attacked because we haven't pushed back. We think we've pushed back because we keep talking about things in one demographic, but we have to talk about this because when our ancestors were in the fields, plowing the fields and working in the houses, et cetera, I don't think any of them ever said, I'm a black man, I'm a black woman. They said, I'm a man, I'm a woman. And I'm saying this from the standpoint that I think that the hope that your father gave was the recognition and within all of us, and it hit our souls that I am a man, I am a woman, I do deserve to be here, I am an American. And so this whole yes we can, I think we have to break down that message too, and recognizing is that now it's not a certain thing of yes we can, it is that we will. And the message that is that we're looking for a message of hope in the midst of a darkness when it feels like there's just a lot of fear.
I see Jesse Jackson and the two brothers down in Tennessee who stood up against gun violence in that legislature. I see Jesse Jackson and Jasmine Crockett in Texas fighting for the Voting Rights Act. I see him in Al Green holding up his stick in the middle of the floor of the state legislature. I see him in Maxine Waters. I obviously see him in Brandon Johnson, who honored Reverend Jesse Jackson this past week in the city of Chicago. I see Reverend and his activism and the courage that he has brought forward in so many of us. I see him in you, Atiba. I know he believes in you, and I know he has confidence in you. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More on the 84th birthday of the Reverend Jesse Jackson when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More when we come forward.
The biggest names, the best conversations. You're riding with Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson says President Trump's deployment of the National Guard to Chicago is illegal and unconstitutional.
Donald Trump declared war on Chicago. That's what he did.
Texas troops arrived in Illinois Tuesday, joining the state's guard at a training center in Elwood. Illinois and Chicago are suing to block the move, but Trump says he may use the Insurrection Act to override them. Jesse Jackson Jr. is running to reclaim his old Illinois congressional seat. The son of civil rights leader Jesse Jackson announced his campaign on YouTube, pledging to focus on jobs, healthcare, and economic growth. And rapper A Boogie with a Hoodie is making headlines after a brawl in a Tokyo nightclub. Video shows the New York rapper allegedly stomping a man during the October 3rd fight. He was in Japan for the Magic City takeover after the Force Festival. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Want to save a few bucks this season? Then head over to your local Big O Tires for their Save a Buck sales event. You'll save up to $250 on select sets of tires with paid installation through October 19th. The Save a Buck sales event, now at your local Big O Tires.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers are back in town tonight for Game 3 of their playoff series with the Philadelphia Phillies. The Dodgers have a 2-0 lead in the best of 5. They can eliminate the Phillies with a win. The Dodgers are 4-0 in the postseason. First pitch tonight at 6 p.m. Colorado football coach Deion Sanders had minor surgery Tuesday to help relieve pain and possible blood clots in his left foot. Deion complained of pain in his foot and left leg during Saturday's game at Texas Christian. It's uncertain if the 58-year-old coach will be at practice today. Colorado is at home Saturday against Iowa State. Deion's son Shedeur has been elevated to the number 2 quarterback spot on the Cleveland Browns roster. Rookie Dylan Gabriel is the Browns starter after 18-year veteran Joe Flacco was traded Tuesday to Cincinnati. The Browns are at Pittsburgh on Sunday. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're still glowing, flirting, grooving. You still got it. But your immune system weakens as you age, making it harder to fight flu, pneumococcal pneumonia, RSV, and COVID-19. Vaccines are a key part of any health routine and help strengthen your immune response. Ask your doctor or pharmacist which vaccines you need. Schedule in minutes at vaxassist.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
It all comes down to this, folks.
Yep, the entire season is on the line.
But my throat has officially thrown in the towel.
Sounds like you need Vicks VapoCool drops. They're max strength and vaporize sore throat pain.
Whoa! These VapoCool drops hit fast.
Speaking of fast, did you just see that play?
Yeah, he vaporized that ball.
That pun should have come with a penalty.
Vaporize sore throat pain with Vicks VapoCool drops. Use as directed.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. We are celebrating the 84th birthday of the Reverend Jesse Jackson, and I'm looking live on our screen at a picture of Reverend Jackson and Reverend Al Sharpton, the younger, marching, locked arm in arm, and I think I see Reverend Bill Howard to his immediate right. Oh, wow. And I also see Reverend Sharpton's late bodyguard who ended up in the soul food business in Harlem, standing right behind him. What an amazing memory. What an amazing family member of ours and a member of this team, honored to be also members of the National Action Network. And Reverend Al Sharpton was just on our program in the last segment, and I'm grateful for his participation. And at this time and critical time in our nation's history, I'm very grateful for the platforms that he has and the leadership that he is showing not only our community, but the world. Atiba, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thanks, Jesse. It's always good to be here.
Atiba is the former executive director for the National Black Caucus of State Legislators. He's a strategic alliance consultant and president of Party Politics US. Atiba, when I think about the fact that man nor woman can be born again into the flesh, but that they have to be born again into spirit. That's really when the body, the house that we live, that our spirit lives in over the course of our earthly journey, it really is spirit. It is picking up on that persistence and that resilience and that mission and that purpose that really matters to the continuity of our struggle. Tiba?
Yeah, I mean, all of that. There's so much that we can say, about the struggle, and this going back to your dad, there's so much that we can say in terms of, the messages and the lessons that are right here before us that we can use and unpack and use today.
I have a clip from the 1988 convention. We're going to play that clip right now.
Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive on tomorrow night and beyond. Young America, hold your head high now. We can win. You must never stop dreaming. Face reality, yes, but don't stop with the way things are. Dream of things as they ought to be. Dream. Face pain, but love, hope, faith, and dreams will help you rise above the pain. Use hope and imagination as weapons of survival and progress, but you keep on dreaming, young America. Dream of peace. Peace is rational and reasonable. War is irrational in this age and unwinnable. Dream of teachers who teach for life and not for living. Dream of doctors who are concerned more about public health than private wealth. Dream of lawyers more concerned about justice and the judgeship. Dream of preachers who are concerned more about prophecy than profiteering. Dream on the high road with sound values. You must never surrender to inequality. Women cannot compromise ERA or comparable word. Women are making 60 cents on the dollar to what a man makes. Women cannot buy meat cheaper. Women cannot buy bread cheaper. Women cannot buy milk cheaper. Women deserve to get paid for the work that you do. It's right and it's fair. I'm often asked, Jesse, why do you take on these tough issues? They're not very political. We can't win that way. If an issue is morally right, it will eventually be political. It may be political and never be right. Fannie Lou Hamer didn't have the most votes in Atlantic City, but her principles have outlasted every delegate who voted to lock her out. Rosa Parks did not have the most votes, but she was morally right. Dr. King didn't have the most votes about the Vietnam War, but he was morally right. If we're principle first, our politics will fall in place. When you see Jesse,
I'm teary-eyed in this moment because what I know about my dad's condition is we'll never hear that from him again. But profound moment in the history of our body politic. Atiba?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for sharing that, and I hope that more of us listen and that we share that. That was great. I mean, that's the message today that we need to hear over and over again.
Yeah, he put a lot on the line for all of us, and I'm so grateful. So we've got to keep moving forward, though. These are very difficult times. Atiba, we have just about 4 minutes before we come forward. Some amazing things are happening in the city of Chicago and in our country with the armed services. I can only think in this moment, as I watch Reverend Sharpton stand up and I watch others in our community stand up in the tradition of Jesse Jackson, that the resistance takes on, a different kind of politic heading into the midterms. And I know Reverend Jackson would be registering voters if he were in a position to do that for us today. Atiba?
Yeah, registering voters and the people who are registered, making sure that we all go together to vote and that we vote in numbers too large to manipulate the outcome. In terms of, what your father said there, that about what's morally right will become political. What we all, I think, are looking for. In fact, just a couple of weeks ago at the CBC, I became a little upset. But then I recognized, well, it's not for me to be upset at a congressional member for saying that, oh, well, maybe we're waiting for the messenger. It's up for us individuals to look at and to go back and study those who came before us and look at what they did, what were they willing to sacrifice for us, and how we ended up back here. And we got back here because I think we lost touch of the message, not just one of hope, but we lost touch in terms of recognizing that we can never, ever, ever let our foot off of the pedal.
Tiba, I heard exactly what you heard. Dad said that if we are morally right, our politics will follow. He did not say if we were politically right or correct, our politics would follow. He based the energy and the faith in our politics and our faith in each other in the moral correctness of our cause. And I find that a unique space. It's a space, quite frankly, that many of the public policy analysts, I believe, have abandoned, and therefore the energy isn't there, and the same zeal and commitment that comes from, a faith-based moral thinking in pursuit of that which ultimately will be politically correct.
Yeah, one of the things that, and I don't want to take away from us talking about Reverend Jackson, but like Reverend Sharpton said, there would be no President Obama without Reverend Jackson. And one of the things that keeps coming to mind for me is how much emphasis we as a nation continue to put emphasis on the outlying things, race and women, etc. Those are very important things. Ultimately, though, I like to get to the human part of these discussions. And more importantly, I want to get to the part where we recognize that how we got here is because hope was attacked. People attacked President Obama, and there's the thing, sticks and stones may hurt your bones, but words don't hurt me none. But words do hurt. Words bring up trauma. Words bring up a lot of things. But at the same time, to work in the political space, you have to have thick skin. But in terms of where we are today, the outline piece was that, okay, they attacked President Obama the way that Lee Atwater and the Republican National Committee were doing when President Bush ran in 1988, brought up crime and Willie Horton. And I'm bringing this up because all these things are connected. We talk about code language and code switching, what have you, but all these things are tied together. We just haven't figured out how to bring that forward today. So the language and things that are going on today that the president is doing and all the things that we see and the distractions we have that are going on, they're hurtful. What we're seeing was happening in Chicago. It's hurtful what we're seeing in DC, but this is not new. And we've been through this before and we can beat this, but we have to recognize that hope is the only thing that will battle and will win out over fear.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest is our conversation with Atiba on KBLA Talk 1580 on my dad's birthday, his 84th birthday, the 84th birthday of the Reverend Jesse Jackson. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's never too early to start talking about money in realistic ways with your kids. JP Morgan Chase navigates how to educate your kids now about creating long-lasting, healthy money habits. Whether your kids are in elementary school, high school, or college, now is a great time to start a conversation about ways to create healthy money habits as they grow, ultimately benefiting their financial future. Talking about money in a realistic way to support your kids' lifestyle and dreams, your first banking account geared towards high school or college. It's never too early. Explaining the basics, what you earn and what you spend, building financial confidence starts with getting organized. Learning and practicing vital money skills now will stay with them for life. Tools they will have to stay on top of their finances and achieve their goals. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase.
You're still glowing, flirting, grooving. You still got it. But your immune system weakens as you age, making it harder to fight flu, pneumococcal pneumonia, RSV, and COVID-19. Vaccines are a key part of any health routine and help strengthen your immune response. Ask your doctor or pharmacist which vaccines you need. Schedule in minutes at VaxAssist.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
It all comes down to this, folks.
Yep, the entire season is on the line.
But my throat has officially thrown in the towel.
Sounds like you need Vicks VapoCool drops. Their max strength and vaporize sore throat pain.
Whoa! These VapoCool drops hit fast.
Speaking of fast, did you just see that play?
Yeah, he vaporized that ball.
That fun should have come with a penalty.
Vaporize sore throat pain with Vicks VapoCool drops. Use as directed.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. If you need help getting your resume in order, finding job training, or landing a job, we've got 3 great options for you. First, the City of Los Angeles has WorkSource centers across the area offering free job support. The California Workforce Development Board can help you with everything from GED prep to vocational training at no cost to you. On the federal level, the Department of Labor's American Job Centers offer a full range of services for job seekers and businesses alike. Visit careeronestop.org, or for more info, just call California's Help Center or visit cwdb.ca.gov or call 916-657-1440. For the City of Los Angeles programs, go to ewdd.lacity.gov or call 213-744-7300. All these services are free to help you get your next job. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
My mom has decided to learn to paint, and she's good.
My dad's now into creative cuisine, and I've already put on 6 pounds. Learning new things comes with age.
My mom, she started forgetting my name and what we're talking about.
Forgetting well-known things doesn't. Memory loss may be a sign of Alzheimer's disease. Early detection gives you and your loved one time to plan for the future. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council. Ready to order?
Yes. We're earning unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with the Capital One Saver card. So let's just get one of everything.
Everything?
Fire everything. The Capital One Saver card is at table 27, and they're earning unlimited 3% cash back.
Yes, Chef! This is so nice.
Had a feeling you'd want 3% cash back on dessert.
Ooh, tiramisu.
Earn unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with the Capital One Saver card. Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. KBLA Talk 1580, our very special guest in this hour. Our conversations with Atiba Madian. Atiba, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, Jesse.
Atiba, I was just thinking that when I reflect upon what we were just discussing on Reverend Jackson and our morality first and then our politics second, you know, national leadership, particularly national African-American leadership, is so rare. That is, when I had a conversation with my dad, this is a guy who worked, campaigned, traveled in all 50 states. He knew people in hundreds of counties throughout the United States. He knew mayors in dozens of cities. He knew scores and scores of U.S. congressmen, of senators, of world leaders. And therefore, Atiba, when I have a conversation with him, this is a man who brought to the conversation a plethora of ideas and thoughts that mattered in seeing the entire globe, helping frame his worldview of what constitutes morality. Now, I juxtapose that against, let's say, someone who's only concerned about their block, someone who's only concerned about, if you will, Atiba, their tribe, or concerned about their group. One of the things I appreciate about you is you start from a universal perspective that is the byproduct of experience. And therefore, the conversation with you is informed not just by what we see directly in front of us, but by the kind of information that you gathered and observed over the course of your own life working, for example, and I just use this as an example, as the former executive director of the National Black Caucus of State Legislators.
Yeah, you know, Jesse, one of the things that comes to mind, honestly, is when you talk about your relationship with your father, it's my relationship with mine. My father also often tells us our lives are through our relationships. And relationships, you talked about the people that you remember seeing in 1972 on the floor of the Democratic Convention.
In Gary, Indiana.
In Gary, Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me think to, I'm going to go what you just said, and I really appreciate any compliment, anything that you say about me. I don't always say thank you. I just want you to know it means a lot. Especially coming from you. It makes me think about a vision that my father had, and this is actually something that I'm writing about right now. A vision that he had, having lived overseas in Cameroon and in Paris and in Greenland, in the Peace Corps and in the Air Force before he and my mother married, that he wanted his children to live on the continent of Africa. And we went to a third world country. My mom had the courage to follow and to accept that this was something he wanted to do. And that is what opened my mind up to seeing things the way that I do. Because to see poverty there compared to here really changed the way that I look at things, to say we have resources, we have things here. I can't imagine, what your father, all the places you mentioned, going 50 states, but all the places around the world that he traveled to, are the stories that he and you and others who travel with him have. That recognizing our place is not just as Americans, our place is as a global citizen. So all these things that are going on today, I think one of the things that is missing and that what we can be doing is not just highlighting and not just resisting, but recognizing the world is waiting and watching for us. They did it with George Floyd. That's why the rest of the world got up and did things in a diverse manner. They did it during the civil rights movement when they saw the hoses and things that have been put on us. They did it when they saw your father run for president in 1984 and again in 1988, that Americans were really standing up, and that's where we are now. And that's why I think the message that your father brought of hope and the recognition today of him on the day that he came to be, the day that he came into this world, that things that the body of work over 84 years, that it is up to us to stand on those broad shoulders of he and other giants and recognize that we can go farther because we can see farther because of the road that they paved for us.
The term that you use, global citizenry. Now, that right there, you said it in 2 words, what I took 5 to say. Global citizenry. This is where Dr. King was. This was not just a local, yokel conversation. This was a conversation with a person who saw himself and his worldview included a world house and global citizenry. You shared with us your own engagement and involvement in global citizenry. And I'd like to think that I'm a global citizen as well. I know Reverend Al Sharpton is. I'm simply suggesting that the leaders that we who help shape the moral paradigm are citizens of the world, that they see starvation and poverty in Africa, in South America. They see the whole story of immigrants migrating to the United States, not just the moment of suddenly I have new neighbors and I have a reaction because these people are living next door to me, but they recognize that something has gone awry, either through US policy or even their own domestic policy, that has people walking thousands of miles and they're willing to risk their lives to be free. They see the whole world, the migration of people, the dynamics of people, and they are able to speak to that global truth. That was Jesse Jackson. That is Jesse Jackson. That was Dr. King. That is the living King. That was Jesus of Nazareth. That is the living Jesus of Nazareth. That was Al Sharpton. It is Al Sharpton in the present. It's Atiba who was, but it's also the Atiba who is the global citizen holding the present accountable.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things too that we often think, or the idea, I said that the road was paved by those who came before us, but I didn't say the road was straight.
Neither was Jericho.
Right, because and so the road to justice is a crooked path.
Yeah.
But it's worth the trip. And what I want people to recognize is that those who came before us, it's up to us now to drive the car, to take the trip. And I want to go there with you. But I want you to come with me because there is a better way. There is something that's out there. There's something that's ahead of us for us to get to. And we can't get there by being stagnant. We can't get there by complaining. It's just like there's a book, Who Moved My Cheese? That about 4 rats, or 4 mice, one hem and haw, sniff and scurry. And so we can either hem and haw, or we can sniff and scurry along, because there is something that's promised us. There is something better ahead for us. It's just that we have to get up and go there. And that doesn't mean there will not be obstacles. It does not mean there will not be challenges, but it is worth the trip.
Atiba, this is the 84th birthday of the Reverend Jesse Jackson. We are celebrating his life, his legacy, and so much of his contributions. About a minute and a half before we close. Atiba, a word of hope.
So, Jesse, first I want to say thank you to Reverend Jackson for the sacrifices and the things that he did. But thank you to you and your siblings and your mom, because you shared him with us. When I think of your father, I have to put him up there with not just Dr. King and Malcolm and Medgar Evers and Fannie Lou Hamer and Rosa Parks and so many others we can name, but I also, and from a global standpoint, put him up there with Nelson Mandela. What the families endure also are things that I think that we often forget. The sacrifices that you all made, the nights where he wasn't there because he was out there saving someone, going to on an international trip to bring someone home. And, I think in each of us, there is a Jesse Jackson. I think and I think that each of us has to look within ourselves and reach down and recognize that there are issues in our tissues that come from slavery and other things or what have you are there to make us strong, that we are made for this moment. And just very thankful to your dad and to you and your family.
These are Conversations with Atiba. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Atiba, thank you very much for participating in this on KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, Tavis Smiley is going to be our special guest.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson says President Trump's deployment of the National Guard to Chicago is illegal and unconstitutional.
Donald Trump declared war on Chicago.
That's what he did.
Texas troops arrived in Illinois Tuesday, joining the state's guard at a training center in Elwood. Illinois and Chicago are suing to block the move, but Trump says he may use the Insurrection Act to override them. Jesse Jackson Jr. is running to reclaim his old Illinois congressional seat. The son of civil rights leader Jesse Jackson announced his campaign on YouTube, pledging to focus on jobs, healthcare, and economic growth. And rapper A Boogie with a Hoodie is making headlines after a brawl in a Tokyo nightclub. Video shows the New York rapper allegedly stomping a man during the October 3rd fight. He was in Japan for the Magic City takeover after the Force Festival. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Want to save a few bucks this season? Then head over to your local Big O Tires for their Save a Buck sales event. You'll save up to $250 on select sets of tires with paid installation through October 19th. The Save a Buck sales event, now at your local Big O Tire.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers are back in town tonight for Game 3 of their playoff series with the Philadelphia Phillies. The Dodgers have a 2-0 lead in the best-of-5. They can eliminate the Phillies with a win. The Dodgers are 4-0 in the postseason. First pitch tonight at 6 p.m. Colorado football coach Deion Sanders had minor surgery Tuesday to help relieve pain and possible blood clots in his left foot. Deion complained of pain in his foot and left leg during Saturday's game at Texas Christian. It's uncertain if the 58-year-old coach will be at practice today. Colorado is at home Saturday against Iowa State. Deion's son Shedeur has been elevated to the number 2 quarterback spot on the Cleveland Browns roster. Rookie Dylan Gabriel is the Browns starter after 18-year veteran Joe Flacco was traded Tuesday to Cincinnati. The Browns are at Pittsburgh on Sunday. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hello, KBLA delegation. Tavis Smiley here. On Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech becomes the epicenter of ideas that matter. The Left Coast Forum is bringing together voices that challenge, inspire, and illuminate with keynote presentations from people like noted economist Richard Wolff, the man who breaks down capitalism in ways that make sense to working folk like you and me, and Dr. Cornel West will be there, the brilliant philosopher and activist who never stops fighting for justice and speaking truth to power and to the powerless for that matter. So this isn't just another conference. This is where ideas get tested, where the conversations that shape our future begin. Multiple plenary sessions, dynamic speakers, real talk about the issues that impact our communities, and then some good food and a live band. Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech, Left Coast Forum. The event is free and open to the public, but you must register at our KBLA1580.com website, where you can also peep the plenary topics. The future belongs to those who show up and engage. So don't just think about change, be part of the conversation that creates it. The Left Coast Forum is brought to you by the LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress, Community Coalition, Partnership for Growth LA, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, LA Care Health Plan, United Teachers Los Angeles, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and more. Space is limited, so if I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. Your voice matters, your presence matters. We'll see you there.
Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Tavis last night had to fly internationally, and I was able to record a segment with him, and we're going to run that segment now. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Today is October 8th, 2025, the 84th birthday of my father, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, a man who has had an extraordinary influence on my life, obviously, but has been an extraordinary influence on the lives of millions of people around the world. I'm grateful to God for his extraordinary contribution. Our very special guest in this segment is none other than Tavis Smiley. Tavis is the owner of KBLA. He is also my mentor. He's a great leader for such a time as this. And I'm so proud that for a few moments, Tavis might share some reflections on Jesse Jackson. Tavis, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
It is my honor always to be in conversation with you, my friend, brother, and leader. And happy 84th natal day to Reverend Jesse L. Jackson Sr. We are better as a nation, better as a people, better as a world for all his grand contributions. And I was just reflecting as you were talking a moment ago about the honor that I had, Jesse, of working on his 84 and 88 campaign. And I can hear his voice ringing in my ears right now. From the outhouse to the White House, hands that pick cotton will now pick a president. You know about Pennsylvania Avenue, but you don't know about Cheney Street. Born in the slum, but the slum wasn't born in me.
Oh, wow.
Hope alive. I love me some Jesse Jackson. His words are yet ringing in my ears. And don't get me started on that convention speech where he said, I'd rather have Roosevelt in a wheelchair than Reagan on a horse. No one in our history since Dr. King has been as eloquent as your precious father, with courage and conviction and commitment to speaking to the pain and the angst of everyday people. And so I celebrate his 84th birthday with you today. Honored to be here.
Tavis, I appreciate that very much. And I'm certainly sure he will hear this and he will appreciate it as well. Tavis, most recently, you were in the city of Chicago and you had a private moment with Reverend Jesse Jackson. Would you care to share that with the audience?
It is, see, now you're about to make me emotional here. I have thought about that. And for my own posterity, which I would never publish publicly, but in my phone, I have a picture that you were gracious enough to take of me at my request of that moment with him. Every one of us has to do that dance with mortality. None of us gets out of here alive. And because I don't live in Chicago, I did not know whether or not that'd be my last time holding his hand, being able to tell him how much I loved him and appreciated him and respected him and revered him. So I asked you to take a photo of me in that moment, as you recalled, and that photo is in my phone. And I've looked at it more times than I can count since that trip to Chicago some weeks ago. But it meant the world to me to have the opportunity, courtesy of your family. I know everybody doesn't get this opportunity to go into the room to see him and to tell him perhaps one last time how much we love and appreciate him. And so that moment meant the world to me. And I recall his nurse and you and others saying to me that he hadn't opened his eyes for quite some time. And for him to hear my voice and to open his eyes, as I said, Jesse, I don't want to get emotional, but for him to have heard my voice and to have opened his eyes in that moment meant the world to me, because I have so my life and my work and witness have been so immeasurably advanced by him. I've never called him to come on any show that I've ever hosted when he didn't respond and come on. And when you watch someone, again, of his eloquence, of his brilliance, of his boldness, do what he's done for so well, for so long, and you see him lying in that bed and this disease having robbed him of his voice, I think of him often because in this critical moment, where the stars are not aligned for Black people, where we are catching hell day in and day out, where this president is pushing an agenda that is antithetical to the best interest of our people. I often think of what your father might be saying in this moment, again, in a way that nobody else could articulate the way that he has done for so long. But the thing that I will never forget, which does bring me some joy, and I can perhaps stop crying here and smile through this moment. He was saying something in a whisper that I couldn't hear. And I asked him to say it again. He said it a second time and I couldn't hear him. And I leaned in closer and said, Reverend, give it to me one more time. I want to hear you. And without going into the details of what he said to me, it was abundantly clear that in that moment, while this disease has robbed his body of all of its vitality, he was still aware of what was happening in the world and offered me political advice in my ear in that moment in real time. And it just did something to me that in that moment, his body racked with pain, his mind was still so aware and still so sharp as to comment in my ear about what was happening politically in that moment and offer me instruction about what to do in that moment. And that is the Reverend Jesse Jackson that I will always love and admire and respect, that even again, as he laying perhaps at his worst, his mind and his heart are still thinking about and loving and serving his people. And I'll say this. Of all the things that one could say about Reverend Jackson, here's the bottom line for me. When that moment comes and he takes his last breath, as we celebrate today his 84th birthday, and again, we all got to go that way. The greatest compliment I can give to Jesse Jackson, which I said to him that day in that room, is that he loved his people. And that's all that needs to be said. That's all I want said of me. When they ask what free sweet, Dr. King said, just call me a drum major for justice. I love that. But when it comes to me, just say Tavis loved his people. And that is what I feel about your father. He has always loved his people and shown that love through his service. And it's just something that just has empowered my work and witness in ways I can't even tell you.
At this stage of Dad's life, he's cognizant, he's aware, but his disease makes it difficult for him to open his eyes. And in that moment, Tavis, as I stood there and as we were preparing to leave, he heard the most recognizable voice in America, not just Black America. He heard Tavis Smiley's voice. And Tavis, do you recall what he did before we left?
Yeah. He opened his eyes and he looked at me. And he told me in his own inimitable way to keep hope alive.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Thank you, Tavis.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hello, KBLA delegation. Tavis Smiley here. On Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech becomes the epicenter of ideas that matter. The Left Coast Forum is bringing together voices that challenge, inspire, and illuminate, with keynote presentations from people like noted economist Richard Wolff, the man who breaks down capitalism in ways that make sense to working folk like you and me, and Dr. Cornel West will be there, the brilliant philosopher and activist who never stops fighting for justice and speaking truth to power and to the powerless, for that matter. So this isn't just another conference. This is where ideas get tested, where the conversations that shape our future begin. Multiple plenary sessions, dynamic speakers, real talk about the issues that impact our communities, and then some good food and a live band. Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech, Left Coast Forum. The event is free and open to the public, but you must register at our KBLA1580.com website, where you can also peep the plenary topics. The future belongs to those who show up and engage. So don't just think about change, be part of the conversation that creates it. The Left Coast Forum is brought to you by the LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress, Community Coalition, Partnership for Growth LA, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, LA Care Health Plan, United Teachers Los Angeles, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and more. Space is limited, so if I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. Your voice matters, your presence matters. We'll see you there.
$5,000. That's the average amount of money people in the U.S. are now spending on gas in a year. $5,000. That's crazy. If you drive, you have to download Upside, the free app that gives you cash back every time you get gas. That's right. You can earn real cash back with Upside just by buying the gas you're already buying. You can literally start earning cash back today.
I use Upside every time I fill up, and I've already made around $300.
You're putting gas in your car anyway. Why not get real cash back? If you like free money, download Upside.
I'm saving the cash I earn from using Upside to help pay for a vacation later this year.
Download Download the free Upside app now to earn cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code MAJOR25 to get an extra 25 cents per gallon on your first tank. You can cash out anytime right to your bank, PayPal, or a gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code MAJOR25 for a 25 cents per gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code MAJOR25 for a 25 cents per gallon bonus.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm particularly excited that in this Wealthy Wednesday hour, our very special guest host is always Reverend Dr. S. Todd Yeary. Dr. S. Todd Yeary is the president of the Yeary Firm. He has a church in Baltimore, Maryland, but he also spends a significant amount of time in courtrooms across the Maryland area, the Washington, D.C., and around our country, advising civil rights leaders and organizations on what we're doing next. Todd Yeary, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Always good to be with you. Happy birthday to Reverend.
Absolutely. On this, the 84th birthday of the Reverend Jesse Jackson, I can think of only a handful of people that my father, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, has confidence and faith in. Tavis Smiley's witness in the previous segment was one of those emotional moments where we would not have been able to finish the interview had we done it for an hour, but we did it for a segment. Clearly driven by the spirit of Reverend Jackson. Tavis offered some very, very thoughtful and emotional words about his life on this 84th birthday. But Dr. Yeary, you too, along with Reverend Sharpton, who was in the previous hour, and Atiba, Reverend Jackson has essentially anointed you in a very special way to carry on his work. He has great respect for your mind. I know that you were one of the leading contenders at Rainbow Push Coalition to run that organization. And I'm particularly honored that you give us of your time, of your spirit, of your energy, of your mind, because so much of Jesse Jackson Sr., so much of Jesse, if you will, is in you. Todd, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show and your thoughts about the Reverend Jesse Jackson.
Yeah, well, always good to be with you. What I do today is actually the fulfillment of something that your father said to me in 1983. He was on the Southern Crusade. Comes through Durham, North Carolina. There's a joint assembly of the juniors and seniors of two high schools, one formerly all white that had become pretty much all black because of white flight from downtown Durham. The other Hillside High. Historically, the all black high school was still pretty much all black, a great, great legacy in history. On that day, the student body president, the late Howard Hoskins, was sick. And somebody had to introduce Reverend. And so it was my assignment to do so. You know how Reverend is. Reverend loves being around young people and being around emerging minds. So after I read the script, as he approaches the podium, I shake his hand, he pulls me close. And he asked me a question that actually changed the framing of my imagination about myself. And the question was, what will you be? A preacher or a lawyer? And that was a heavy question for me, so I didn't know what to say. But here was my retort. I remember it to this day. I said, I don't know, I may be both. And so when I decided to go back to law school well into my adult years, I remember that time. And so in your father's office is actually my graduation TAM from law school, because he imposed on me, he put it in me that there were big dreams that could be fulfilled. You just need somebody to help you understand that you can always move beyond your limitations.
Reverend Erie, let's listen to Jesse Jackson in 1988.
We could afford to lose the vote. Issues are negotiable. We could not afford to avoid raising the right questions. Our self-respect and our moral integrity were at stake. Our heads are perhaps bloody, but not bowed. Our back is straight. We can go home and face our people. Our vision is clear. We think on this journey from slave ship to championship, we've gone from the planks of the boardwalk in Atlantic City in 1964 to fighting to help right the planks in the platform in San Francisco in 84. There is a deep and abiding sense of joy in our souls in spite of the tears in our eyes. Though there are missing planks, there is a solid foundation upon which to build. Our party can win, but we must provide hope which will inspire people to struggle and achieve. Provide a plan that shows a way out of our dilemma and then lead the way. In 1984, my heart is made to feel glad because I know there is a way out. Justice. The requirement for rebuilding America is justice. The linchpin of progressive politics in our nation will not come from the North. They, in fact, will come from the South. That is why I argue over and over again. We look from Virginia around to Texas. There's only one black congressperson out of 115. 19 years later, we're locked out the Congress, the Senate, and the governor's mansion. What does this large black vote mean? Why do I fight to end second primaries and fight gerrymandering and annexation and that large? Why do we fight over that? Because I tell you, you cannot hold someone in the ditch unless you linger there with them. Unless you linger there. If you want to change in this nation, you enforce that Voting Rights Act, we'll get 12 to 20 black, Hispanic, female, and progressive congresspersons from the South. We can save the cotton, but we got to fight the boll weevils. We got to make a judgment. We got to make a judgment. It's not enough to hope ERA will pass. How can we pass ERA? If blacks vote in great numbers, progressive whites win. It's the only way progressive whites win. If blacks vote in great numbers, Hispanics win. When blacks, Hispanics, and whites vote, when children win, when women and children win, workers win. We must all come up together. We must come up together. All of our joy and excitement, we must not save the world and lose our souls. We should never short circuit enforcing the Voting Rights Act at every level. When one of us rise, all of us will rise. Justice is a way out. Peace is a way out. We should not act as if nuclear weaponry is negotiable and debatable. In this world in which we live, we dropped the bomb on Japan and felt guilty. But in 1984, other folks also got bombed. This time we dropped the bomb, 6 minutes later, we too will be destroyed. It's not about dropping the bomb on somebody. It's about dropping a bomb on everybody. We must choose to develop minds over guided missiles and think it out and not fight it out. It's time for a change. Our foreign policy must be characterized by...
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Our very special guest in this hour on Wealthy Wednesdays is none other than Dr. S. Todd Eury. Dr. Eury, there are 5 minutes left in this segment. Your thoughts about what you heard from Jesse Jackson in 1988.
Yeah. He was framing for us kind of the real world of what Dr. King called the fierce urgency of now.
Mm.
This procrastination politically that seems to almost have us in a stupor comes with literally deadly consequences. And so he was reminding and inspiring in that moment, right? That there was much more to do. Listen, he was able to frame a reality so clear that I remember after, I can't remember if it was 84, 88, there's a picture. Now, when I grew up in my grandmama's house, go visit, there would be 3 pictures hanging on the wall. There would be a velvet picture of Michelangelo's relative that they kept trying to tell us was Jesus. There'd be a picture of Dr. King. And then after that framing of what was going on, it'd be JFK. He was the 3rd. And there was a 4th picture added after your father didn't just run for president, he reframed the consciousness of not only the party, the Democratic Party, but the nation around what should our priorities be as a moral nation or in our aspiration, if we have it anymore.
Dr. Eury, Jesse Jackson also shared with us in that moment in 1988 the fragility of the Voting Rights Act of 1965.
Yeah, he was very much aware that from the very moment that it had been signed into law, that there was going to be an unrelenting effort to undo it, or at least to disempower it as quickly as possible. Because remember, President Johnson knew what that actually meant. He knew what that whole body of law, the Civil Rights Act of 64, the Voting Rights Act of 65, you get to fair housing in 68, that it was going to create outrage in the very southern states that he represented when he was in the United States Senate.
Mm.
And that outrage has not wavered. It has not weakened. It is actually playing itself out under the guise of fighting crime in, quote, democratic cities. Well, it's democratic cities with large Black populations, Black leadership. We know what it is. Your father helped us to see what had not yet become visible and call it out.
I think the power of that moment, and when you think that Lyndon Johnson was from Texas, and you see, in a real sense, the antithesis of Johnson's great society in Governor Abbott, and the men and women, the poor men and women that he bused to Chicago, and now he's sending his troops into Chicago, not only to remove the people that he bused to Chicago, but he's coming to Chicago under the guise of fighting crime in a crime-ridden city where the facts just do not equal what Donald Trump or Governor Abbott are saying about our city. And he's not relinquishing control over his troops to the governor of Illinois. He is maintaining control over the 400 guardsmen that he is sending to Chicago remain under the jurisdiction of the governor of Texas. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More on the 84th birthday of the Reverend Jesse Jackson with none other than Dr. S. Todd Eury on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
It's after Afternoon Drive Time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Virginia Senator Tim Kaine is standing by Black Democratic Attorney General candidate Jay Jones after his controversial 2022 text messages recently resurfaced, showing him joking about hypothetical violence toward former House Speaker Todd Gilbert.
And he has apologized. I wish other people in public life would sincerely apologize for stuff. So no, I still am a supporter.
Kaine says the remarks were out of character, while Jones has apologized. The last fugitive from a May jailbreak in New Orleans has been captured. Derek Groves, wanted for murder, was arrested in Atlanta after a police standoff. He was one of 10 Black inmates who escaped through a hole in a jail wall. And former Black Georgia football star Herschel Walker has been named U.S. ambassador to the Bahamas. The Senate approved the move Tuesday. Walker, a 2022 GOP Senate nominee, previously co-chaired Trump's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Want to save a few bucks this season? Then head over to your local Big O Tires for their Save a Buck sales event. You'll save up to $250 on select sets of tires with paid installation through October 19th. The Save a Buck sales event, now at your local Big O Tires.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A very sympathetic statistic concerning Colorado football coach Deion Sanders. When Deion had minor surgery Tuesday to remove potential blood clots in his left foot, it was the 16th time the 58-year-old coach has undergone surgery in the last 3 years. Blood clots in Deion's legs have led to several procedures, including having 2 toes amputated because of poor circulation. Deion had surgery in May to remove tumors after he was diagnosed with bladder cancer. Despite all of Deion's health ailments, he was on the field Wednesday afternoon for practice. Colorado was at home Saturday against Iowa State. There will be no undefeated watch in the NFL now that the Buffalo Bills and Philadelphia Eagles have lost their first game. Who was the last NFL team to go through an entire regular season undefeated? Send your answer to Ray at SmileyAudiomedia.com. Ray at SmileyAudiomedia.com. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Hello, KBLA delegation. Tavis Smiley here. On Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech becomes the epicenter of ideas that matter. The Left Coast Forum is bringing together voices that challenge, inspire, and illuminate, with keynote presentations from people like noted economist Richard Wolff, the man who breaks down capitalism in ways that make sense to working folk like you and me, and Dr. Cornel West will be there, the brilliant philosopher and activist who never stops fighting for justice and speaking truth to power and to the powerless, for that matter. So this isn't just another conference. This is where ideas get tested, where the conversations that shape our future begin. Multiple plenary sessions, dynamic speakers, real talk about the issues that impact our communities, and then some good food and a live band. Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech, Left Coast Forum. The event is free and open to the public, but you must register at our KBLA1580.com website, where you can also peep the plenary topics. The future belongs to those who show up and engage. So don't just think about change, be part of the conversation that creates it. The Left Coast Forum is brought to you by the LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress, Community Coalition, Partnership for Growth LA, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, LA Care Health Plan, United Teachers Los Angeles, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and more. Space is limited, so if I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. Your voice matters, your presence matters. We'll see you there.
Coverage varies by plan. View contracts and exclusions at endurancewarranty.com.
If you have a 2004 or newer vehicle that's out of warranty or about to be, Endurance is urgently notifying U.S. drivers about their low-cost vehicle coverage plan designed to save drivers thousands on rising vehicle repair costs. Those who qualify can pick their plan, coverage, and repair shop. Roadside service, towing, and rental cars included. All covered repairs get paid directly to the repair shop for you. Call now for your free quote. Call 800-373-7519. That's 800-373-7519.
September is World Alzheimer's Month, a time to shine a light on a public health crisis that deeply impacts Black families. 1 in 5 Black adults ages 70 and older is living with Alzheimer's disease, or AD, and the risk is twice as high compared to white adults. But AD isn't just forgetting a name or losing track of time. Signs of early AD could be repeating questions, missing appointments, or struggling with bills and daily tasks. These things aren't a normal part of aging. Here's the good news. Treatments are available that may help if AD is diagnosed early. If you notice changes in memory or daily routines, whether in yourself or a loved one, don't wait. Early diagnosis and intervention are key to managing AD effectively. To learn more about AD and a potential treatment option, visit treatalsearly.com. That's treatalzearly.com to learn more about the signs and symptoms and a potential treatment option. This message is brought to you by AZI.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580, the 84th birthday of the Reverend Jesse Jackson. I just call him Dad. Our very special guest in this hour is one of his disciples, one of the men that my father has confidence in to continue his great work, Dr. S. Todd Yeary. Dr. Yeary, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
It's very heavy, my brother. I appreciate the vote of confidence. It has been nothing less than the honor of my life to be able to sit with and serve your dad, whether it was for a moment or a month. My life is better because of it.
That's how he sees you. That's how he sees you. Dr. Yeary, in this moment, there's so much going on around the country. In the tradition of Jesse Jackson, I asked Reverend Sharpton moments ago the same question. Where do we go from here?
Part of me thinking about Rev would be go sit down someplace and have a plate. His favorite color on the plate is brown. It's either catfish or fried chicken. He calls himself a chickatarian. you know. Where do we go from here starts with understanding where we are. And being present to explore what are the possibilities. And I'll take you back to the example that hopefully answers the question. It was maybe 2012 where there was a crisis in the Gambia, an issue around human rights and the execution of political opposition members. Reverend had been invited to come over and have the conversation. Many of the foreign nations that provided aid to the Gambia were holding back on the aid. And so I was one who got a phone call on a Wednesday. I'll never forget it. My assistant at the church said, Reverend Jackson called. So I called the late John Mitchell. Reverend wants you to be ready to go with him to the Gambia on Saturday. So I went to go get shots, made sure my passport was ready. We fly over. Rev was always interested in that. If you take a long flight with Reverend, do know you're not going to get a lot of sleep. Because every time he has an idea, he's going to come back to wherever you sitting and he's going to stand up and y'all going to talk. So we talked a lot of the way. We got some sleep when we could. When we arrived, though the circumstances on the ground had changed, there was a different issue that came up. The then U.S. ambassador to the Gambia indicated that there were dual U.S. citizens who were being held they wanted Reverend's assistance in trying to negotiate their release. I still have a picture. Reverend is kind of leaning back in a chair. He's tired from the flight, but he's thinking about it. He's thinking about not if he would do it, but how he would get it done. So sometimes we get focused on the where we go. Reverend was always very clear on the from here. Where's here? And if we're not present with the conditions of the people, where we're going is most likely going to be the wrong destination. And so he, Reverend, I'll never forget it. He comes down the stairs after they had spent some time. He and the other principal, the president, we're talking, and we stood over in the corner. And Reverend says, "I think we're going to get this done." And sure enough, he got it done. But he got it done because he didn't get hung up on the sentiments. How do I feel about the person? But what does this moment require for where we are? Where is here? So where do we go from here is a conversation that we have to have clarity about where we're starting from so that we can then have some sense of where we're going.
I appreciate that, Dr. Yuri. I think that I think that's right. I think Reverend would position himself absolutely in the present with a serious critique and analysis of the past, but engaging the present. Whoa, may all my powers be engaged to do the master's will in the present was a factor in Jesse Jackson's theology. Now, I can also share with you that something Reverend Sharpton said that is particularly noteworthy about Dad, and that is this. No one person can do his job. You cannot imagine a person driven for the length of time that my father was driven, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, grinding, and I mean grinding and grinding from one location to the next, globe trotting, being present at before the internet now, being present at every single point of challenge. If the news broke tomorrow and it was something significant, Reverend Jackson would be there before the local news would be there, having embraced the family or embraced the community or spoken in a church or organized a minister's breakfast. And so you think you can easily duplicate that work, that kind of commitment, that kind of determination? It's not easy to duplicate. There might be 20 people, Dr. Yuri, who can do what Reverend Jackson did by himself, but everyone would have to be functioning in some kind of loose confederation or agreement that we're all doing this work, and in our own way, no one's wrong. We're all doing the work of Jesse Jackson.
Well, that's how he built the organization. It wasn't to create a replica of himself, but to really kind of model the multifaceted ways in which this work really has to be done. And so there'll never be a singular personality and creative thinker, just always committed, always observant. You know, all you need to do, Reverend starts with the newspaper, and then when cable news, 24-hour cable news becomes a thing, you know, the only other thing that he might watch would be football, having played football. But the rest of the time, you watching the news, you better know what's going on in real time so you can know how to respond. And so what he has done, I think, has given so many of us the opportunity to work hard, to know what it is like to be genuinely concerned about the conditions of people, the common humanity of us all, and then be willing to take sometimes the unconventional paths to be able to get maybe unbelievable outcomes, things that folks didn't even think would be possible because you didn't put yourself in the box that so many people say you got to think outside of. He never had a box. The box would be a chicken box. And then after that, it's let's go and let's do this work. And so get your breath, drink some water, catch a nap in the vehicle, whatever you got to do. When Rev said let's, everybody knew we were on the move somewhere to do something that was meaningful in the lives of regular people.
I know we have about 45 seconds before we come forward, but I do want to share with everybody this. When my father got on a plane, everybody on that plane knew Jesse Jackson was on the plane. When Jesse Jackson was walking down the terminal, everybody knew that was Jesse Jackson. When Jesse Jackson called a corporate leader and he stepped in, boardrooms began to shake. They began hiring consultants because Jesse Jackson wants to have a meeting with the head of this company or that corporation and talk with them about diversity, equity, and inclusion and African Americans and their fair share. When Jesse Jackson showed up at the Chicago Bulls game, they had to let him in the locker room. When Jesse Jackson showed up at the Dallas Cowboys game, Tom Landry wanted to shake his hand. I'm telling you, Jesse Jackson was something else, is something else, but I mean in his prime. He put the fear of God in presidents, senators, and congressmen. We're going to need that again. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest in this hour on Wealthy Wednesdays is none other than one of the disciples of Reverend Jesse Jackson, Dr. S. Todd Yeary. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Do you owe $10,000 or more in credit card debt or personal loans? With credit card debt at all-time highs, Debt Relief Advocates is urgently notifying consumers of debt relief now being made available, designed to aid consumers with out-of-control credit card debt. Those who qualify and enroll for this relief program will only have to pay back a fraction of what they owe. This is not bankruptcy or a debt consolidation loan. This is a relief program that credit card companies would rather you not know about, as it ends your debt nightmare and saves you lots of money. Consumers owing at least $10,000 in credit card debt or personal loans can now take advantage of this debt relief as the cost of living skyrockets. Debt Relief Advocates has established a relief hotline for you to call to learn what debt reduction you may qualify for, so don't wait. For this free information, call the Relief Hotline at 800-515-4493, 800-515-4493, 800-515-4493.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you, when we fight, we win. The Youth Justice Coalition is challenging America's addiction to incarceration and discrimination. YJC works to dismantle policies leading to mass incarceration, law enforcement violence, and the school-to-prison pipeline. Their approach? Transformative justice, community intervention, free LA high school, legal defense, and system monitoring. YJC promotes safety without relying on prisons. Their goal? Prevent system contact and help people exit the system through direct action, advocacy, and education. Want to get involved or need help? Call 323-235-4243. That's 323-235-4243. Join YJC in creating change. When we fight, we win. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice for justice. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Hello, KBLA delegation. Tavis Smiley here. On Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech becomes the epicenter of ideas that matter. The Left Coast Forum is bringing together voices that challenge, inspire, and illuminate, with keynote presentations from people like noted economist Richard Wolff, the man who breaks down capitalism in ways that make sense to working folk like you and me, and Dr. Cornel West will be there, the brilliant philosopher and activist who never stops fighting for justice and speaking truth to power and to the powerless, for that matter. So this isn't just another conference. This is where ideas get tested, where the conversations that shape our future begin. Multiple plenary sessions, dynamic speakers, real talk about the issues that impact our communities, and then some good food and a live band. Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech, Left Coast Forum. The event is free and open to the public, but you must register at our KBLA1580.com website, where you can also peep the plenary topics. The future belongs to those who show up and engage. So don't just think about change, be part of the conversation that creates it. The Left Coast Forum is brought to you by the LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress, Community Coalition, Partnership for Growth LA, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, LA Care Health Plan, United Teachers Los Angeles, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and more. Space is limited, so if I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. Your voice matters, your presence matters. We'll see you there.
Nationwide is so much more than a great insurance company. They're one of America's largest financial services companies. Like how I'm more than Saquon Barkley, the NFL's reigning leading rusher. I'm also the NFL's leading husher. Shh, hush up back there. Wow, I might have just set the hushing record. Well, almost. For your insurance and financial needs, Nationwide is on your side.
Nationwide Investment Services Corporation, member FINRA, Columbus, Ohio.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Jesse Jackson Jr., welcome here to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show in our final segment with Dr. Escott Geary. We are paying a tribute to the Reverend Jesse Jackson, who turns 84 years young today. Many of you may know that Reverend Jackson is in a very difficult battle with Parkinson's. But we are so grateful for his work, for his life, and for the extraordinary contribution that he has made to all of us in the last 6 decades. Extraordinary contribution. Our very special guest in this hour is one of the faithful, one of the men that Dr. Jackson, Reverend Jesse Jackson, had faith in, Dr. S. Todd Geary. Dr. Geary, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Tremendously honored to be with you on this day, his birthday.
Absolutely. Dr. Geary, let me ask you this, this question. It seems to me that one of the operating philosophies of Jesse Jackson was this. He used to call it the points of challenge. He would look across the global panoplia of news items and say, we need to be here today. We need to be right here. These students are getting kicked out of school right here. We need to be here. Our brothers and sisters are struggling in the Middle East. We need to be right here. Reverend Jackson never shied away from something he called the points of challenge. Now, there's so many points of challenge everywhere. I don't know quite what the methodology or the logic was behind the points of challenge. I have this kind of theory. I'll save that for another day. But the points of challenge leadership, Dr. Geary, relevant at all times as an operating philosophy.
Yeah. You can't help but chuckle because you think about your own journey of being able to share some very wonderful moments with your dad. And it's constantly evolving just how meaningful those are. The first window of opportunity to be actually officially on staff. Your father said, "Meet me."
By the way, officially on staff means you spent thousands of dollars traveling from Chicago to Baltimore at your own expense, no reimbursement, and if you're on staff, there's the possibility you might be reimbursed.
yeah, and if not, you'll be all right. That's why moonlighting is a thing. So the first he said, I want you to meet me in Ohio. Flew into, I think, Columbus. He was going to a Wendy's shareholders meeting. That's the first day. He's going in to have a conversation with the board. He met with the CEO, met with the chair of the board, because there were some farm workers who were impacted by how Wendy's was doing business with them and what the wages were. And so in that same moment, he goes in, he shows up at the annual shareholders meeting, meets with the board chair, meets with the CEO, goes into shareholders meeting. We go into shareholders meeting with him. And to go into a shareholders meeting with Reverend, you have to be very, very careful that you don't turn from being a member of the staff and the team to being a groupie, because first of all, you don't even know what goes on in those kinds of spaces, right? Here's Reverend. But then after having that conversation and speaking in that moment very confidently about what was important, not just to him, but to us, he goes right out and has a conversation with those very advocates who are outside of the shareholders meeting, wanting to be recognized and acknowledged for what their concerns are.
That's right.
And so he talked to everybody. He would talk to a Bush if he thought the Bush had a need that he could help address, because he's that kind of just down to earth kind of guy. And so it helped us to grow. I mean, everybody on the team, we learned what it was like to really have, when he talks about keep hope alive, he's not talking about hope in the abstract. He's talking about hope in terms of how we do what we do. What is our ethical focus that makes the efforts that we put forth meaningful, not simply for ourselves, but if it didn't even come back with any benefit for us, does it help somebody else out? And that's what I think is sorely missing, particularly in the moment where we find our politics today.
In the arena of international affairs, Jesse Jackson felt comfortable on both sides. I mean, he would meet with the president of the United States and Castro. He would meet with, for example, Yasser Arafat and the Israeli leadership. He would meet with, contemporarily, the Ukrainian leadership, if he were capable, and Putin. He would meet with rebel units in Africa and the sitting administrations in African nations, trying to bring people together. Reverend Jesse Jackson did not shy away from meeting with both sides and being a factor in pulling both sides together. Wherever the conflict, he'll meet with the corporation, but he'll also meet with labor. He'll also picket with labor and then say, have confidence in me when I get this company to come to the table, and bring them to the table on the terms of the union and a shared agreement. I mean, Jesse Jackson defined the point of challenge where he had credibility on both sides. Dr. Yuri, I know that we don't have much time left. We have about 3 minutes. I'm hoping that you might offer a special word of hope, some final thoughts also about Jesse Jackson.
Reverend never allowed the reports on the ground to deter him. It actually inspired him. Where there was an urgency, a need, he was ready to go. If he were physically capable, and even as we have watched the physical decline, mind still clearly there. You can see it in his eyes. This is a Jesse Jackson moment for everything that we're dealing with, from government shutdown to the war in the Middle East and Gaza. He would have been to Gaza. He'd have talked some. He would have been to Ukraine. He would have been like, all right, we're going to Moscow. And he was not going to ask the permission of his home government. If it were something where the invitation were extended for him to be part of the conversation, he would be there. And so why does that matter on today? Reverend always tells us to keep hope alive. You asked the question about where do we go from here? That's not always a place that is framed tangibly. It's something that has to be formed by today's efforts. In the Bible, in Romans, Paul says, hope that is seen is not hope. For if you can see it, why hope for it? And so what makes Reverend so amazing even today is he lived in his imagination every single day for all of us. And we owe him a great deal of gratitude, and say happy birthday, Reverend Jackson.
Thank you, Reverend Yuri, for that wonderful tribute to the Reverend Jesse Jackson. And I want to thank Tavis Smiley and the KBLA family for allowing us the privilege. I gotta thank Reverend Al Sharpton for coming on the program, and Atiba for his contribution to our celebration, our discussions, even more in depth about the life and the legacy of Reverend Jesse Jackson on this, his 84th birthday. Contribution that he made. He saved Soul Train. Dick Clark tried to take it over. He He demanded equity from the record companies to give African Americans a shot at it. He took on McDonald's and Burger King and made franchisees possible. And yes, Gina, I'm looking at the pictures, but I can't see that deep into the pictures. I see Todd Yeary and Reverend Jesse Jackson at the Capitol of the United States. Our time is up. I'm on KBLA Talk 1580. More tomorrow on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.